Alright, kind of an extra add-on to the what the fuck. I'm making this video for the second time, but I went 3 seconds over. Ugh, I'm so irritated. I even set the timer and I still fucked it up. So anyway, I just want to get a couple of response videos into Brett Keane and Pyro. There's a couple other guys, Postmodern Anomaly guy, I will do a video response, and the helicopter mechanic guy from the military, I'll get to you too. And you know, I just wanted to mention Existential Cat. She sold one of her paintings on eBay for 135 bucks. So I post a link. I didn't think it was one of her best paintings. I thought it was kind of mediocre, so I didn't mention it because, you know, I thought it was kind of mediocre. But wow, that's pretty good. 135. So I'm thinking maybe I'll do some portraits or something and sell them on eBay and put it into the contest channel or something like that. Maybe this fall when I got more time. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. All right. So anyway, on to Brett Keane. He did a response video to what was taped in Stickcam and then put on YouTube, where we had a conversation, a short conversation about Brett Keane and what we thought of his turnaround. He starts off with this offensive vegetarians are hypocrites video, and then 5 days later he's, well, I can't justify people eating meat. So and yeah, so there was some commentary on this, and is it believable? And my answer was simply no, it's not. And Paul Ego mentioned that he's always been a little suspect of Brett Keane. Fine. I mean, it was hardly a slaughtering of Brett Keane in the first place. In the second place, it was all described like we were somehow best of buddies. I never exchanged a PM with Brett Keane. Yeah, I've had very limited contact. We talk on Stickcam. I've supported him coming back from his suspension. I thought the penalty was too high. I haven't done him any harm. And the fact is, he made a video that I found incredibly offensive to everything I care about. And so yeah, I made some response videos, and the nature of his argument was just so petty and ludicrous that I guess the people who are arguing about this have almost got to concede that, I mean, there's just no way. Like, I had too good of opinion of him before, right? I mean, because that's what it's really all about, is that I just couldn't, it wasn't believable to me that he could sincerely be this stupid, that he sincerely believed that plants feel, and that was a legitimate argument. And then he goes out and gets some old videotapes from the 1960s, no better than Uri Geller video of, Uri Geller bending a fork or something. Just as bad, just as unscientific, and, puts that on YouTube like he's making a real argument. And I'm supposed to take that individual seriously? I'm supposed to say something like, well, I think Brett Keane's a real great guy and a really great atheist. He's doing the cause a really great service. No, I think he's a fucking con artist, period. It's a bullshit argument. It was a nonsense. He just raised the whole thing to create controversy. He was just doing a bunch of name dropping. And he hasn't answered that accusation. He's just, cried some crocodile tears or whatever. But that's the game he plays. He's always licking somebody's ass as he shoves a knife in their eye. That's the game he plays. Right before he rips somebody to shreds, he'll sit there and play this, game, where he's, fondling their balls. So whatever. Do you want to think Brett Keane is the icon of character integrity? Fuck you. Go ahead. Waste your time on that nonsense. He's a used car salesman, as I described him. He's a game player, period. End of the story. Like I said, I had no obligation. I didn't do any backstabbing because we had no fucking friendship. He had no reason to trust me, so there's no such thing as a backstab. So end of that story. Alright, Pyro. Made a video complaining about the fact that somehow I was giving too much latitude in Stickcam. And in the first place, yeah, it's not a latitude I expected or knew I had. Alright, so I didn't have any expectation that I wasn't going to get it kicked or that I was immune. And so I was just going to argue the way I always argue. And I try to get to the point and try to make it as expedient as possible. And so you're making an argument. First, we're doing this 2 + 2 = 4 thing. Like, somehow there's some debate about this plus this equaling this. I mean, who the fuck cares what we call this and this or this? The fact is that equation is fucking absolutely true. You can't change it. It's never going to equal this. That's not going to happen. This plus this is not going to equal this. Fuck. So anyway, that was just a completely frustrating argument to even touch upon. And then you started redefining words, which you do a lot. And all of a sudden you decided that when I said the word relevant, relevant meant only a positive thing. So now when I said relevant, you wanted to use my own word against me by saying somehow I implied that life must be positive because I called it relevant. Like somehow there's a rule that says no negative thing can be a relevant thing. And so that was a bullshit premise. And of course I'm going to interrupt you, because until we correct that premise, there's no fucking argument to be had. So I'm not accepting your definition, and I'm especially not going to accept it retroactively and apply it to a sentence I stated before you decide to redefine the fucking word. That's certainly not going to happen. But I don't want to get into details of the specific argument. You know, Pyro, that me and you have had communication problems in the past, and that's just the way it is. And you know, you can make videos, though. That's the difference here. You're not somebody who just sits in stick cam. You make YouTube videos. If you think you have an argument to make, then make the fucking argument in a goddamn video. You can talk for 10 fucking minutes and I can't interrupt you. You can talk for 25 minutes or 40 minutes and I can't interrupt you. And you know I'll watch the videos. So make your argument and then I'll make my counter argument. But it's just bullshit to say that somehow the world's not being fair to you, or Mendham's not being, or stick cam hasn't been fair to you, or some other kind of bullshit. So whatever. And then you went on, we got on the subject of the kid thing and everything. And yeah, I think you're making this is a pretty lame cop-out. My kids are made out of matter. I didn't make the matter, therefore I didn't create the kids. I mean, come on. Your intelligence, your subconscious, your programming, your wiring found purpose in doing it. You didn't have them completely accidentally, I'm sure. I mean, it was either an accident you were willing to have happen, or you did it on purpose. And so it's just bullshit to cop out and say, I'm just doing what fucking nature required the matter to do or something. And it's kind of a really bogus argument to say, well, if I didn't make them into kids, then the matter would have been somehow diminished, because it would have just stayed as carbon and you know, a rock or, you know, some other kind of inanimate object, and therefore the inanimate objects are kind of like some kind of tortured, imprisoned being that's just waiting to fly out. I mean, do you really believe that all matter is just sitting around saying, I wish I was a conscious organism so I could chase illusionary cheese? I mean, do you really think that's going on? That the whole universe that isn't alive feels deprivated? That the moon is all sad and weepy because it never gets to watch a baseball game? I mean, come on. It's a bullshit argument. And you just whitewash over the whole idea that, you know, we are driven by desire that has been built into us by the DNA, by natural selection, to make us a survival machine. And that we have to be really careful. I mean, you're the one that's at a higher standard of accountability. It's like the extraordinary claims argument require extraordinary evidence. You have to demonstrate how the obvious bias that nature creates hasn't influenced your philosophy. There's no natural bias for somebody to be a gloomy Gus like me. That's not the natural bias. The natural bias is exactly the opposite. So you positive, glasses half empty people are the ones that have to demonstrate the reality of that amount of fluid being in the damn glass. You know, I think you have the higher obligation because you've been naturally built. We know that from evolution, to do this thing, to want to do this thing. You haven't been naturally built to run off a cliff. So it's kind of a bullshit argument. And it's a really rational argument to have, is to analyze and pick apart exactly what we do live for. And whether we are being owned by a DNA molecule. And if we are owned by a DNA molecule, it's a significant friggin' fact. And we're going to have to come up with some damn good logic to account for that. And account for how the DNA molecule, if it did get it right, how the fuck it did get it right. How did it make life the right way when it had no brain, no capacity to do that, and only the simple mandate of consumption and reproduction? That's the burden of the equation you have to resolve. So anyway, I mean, no hard feelings on my part. I'm sorry if you didn't feel like you were given enough time to make your point, and fair wasn't fair and all that other crap. But you kind of know the score, all right? And I'm sorry we have that incompatibility, but I'm really not going to listen to speeches that have preposterous premises in them. So if I have to define words as you say, the words themselves, retroactively to paragraphs I've stated in the past, that's just a non-starter. It's just not going to happen. So anyway, I think it's enough said. Yeah, time is up, and I really must go, because if I fuck up again, I'm not doing this video a third time. I do have 25 seconds, so I really could fuck up a little. But I really shouldn't risk it, right? It's like not wearing the condom. I really shouldn't take the chance. So I will do the right thing and prevent the accident.